Isreal Adesanya was born on July 22, 1989. He is a professional mixed martial artist, a former boxer, and a kickboxer from Nigeria, who currently calls New Zealand home. Isreal Adesanya, popularly known as the Last Stylebender, is one of several Nigerians who are bringing dignity to their country through mixed martial arts. Isreal Adesanya was almost unknown 5 years ago. In this fast-paced sport, he moved from relative obscurity to the UFC's next great thing in the blink of an eye. Before we get into this fascinating story, please like and subscribe to Combat Giant for more interesting content like this. And make sure you watch to the end, because I'll be unveiling some interesting facts about the fighter and his career. Adesanya's MMA exploits have propelled him to a position reserved for the sport's elite. With a 20-1 record and only one loss, Isreal Adesanya is well on his way to becoming an MMA legend. Adesanya made his MMA debut in 2012, defeating James Griffith via TKO. He went on to win one more fight before taking a 2-year break to concentrate on boxing. In 2014, Adesanya faced Daniel Amann, a 2-time Australian champion, in the first Cruiserweight Super 8 boxing tournament. In his boxing debut, he was defeated by a disputed unanimous decision. Adesanya re-entered the tournament and won it by defeating American professional boxer Brian Minto. At the 2015 Super 8 Cruiserweight competition, he successfully defended his Cruiserweight title. Adesanya returned to the octagon in August of 2015 and went on an 8-0 winning streak, earning the Hex Fight Series Middleweight Championship and the AFC Middleweight Championship. Adesanya joined the UFC family in December of 2017. In February of 2018, Adesanya made his MMA debut against Australian mixed martial artist Rob Wilkinson, which he won by TKO. He also received the prize for Best Performance of the Night. Adesanya went on to win his next 3 fights, with his 3rd and 4th fights earning him Performance of the Night as well. In February of 2019, Adesanya fought former UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva in UFC 234, which he won and shared the Fight of the Night award with his opponent, with a string of highlight reel finishes, breakdancing montages, and a growing army of supporters behind him. He was the undefeated middleweight champion. Adesanya appears to have been created in a lab by the UFC at times. He checks all of the boxes for an MMA superstar. He is a flashy, exhibitionist striker who can wax lyrical with a mic in his hand and opens up the African market. You wouldn't be alone if you drew a comparison to Conor McGregor, but the Nigerian-born New Zealander isn't carved from the same cloth. The rise has been spectacular, and as he has been able to defend his title against all odds, it seems like a good time to take a break and recap Adesanya's incredible journey. He was born into a wealthy Nigerian family, but his father was afraid that the education he was receiving in his homeland would be of little value to Western universities. The family considered relocating to the United States, but the environment for immigrants was just too poisonous in the aftermath of the September 11 terrorist attacks. They eventually decided to travel to New Zealand, where they settled in Rotorua. For Adesanya, who was 10 at the time, it was a lonely place. He's since realized, quote, "I've always been the odd one out, the bat among doves, the pebble among stones." Adesanya migrated to New Zealand from Nigeria as a child and struggled to fit in. He began kickboxing as a teenager after being inspired by a Muay Thai video. Because only 1% of the city's population was black at the time, a young guy torn from his home and transplanted to the bottom of the planet faced numerous challenges. The words "broken native" is tattooed on his chest as a reminder of his mixed origins and struggles to fit in. Bullying and discrimination occurred, but Adesanya didn't become interested in combat sports until he was 18. He explained, quote, "I never wanted to feel defenseless, and I never wanted another guy to kick my ass. It was necessary for me to learn how to defend myself. They didn't want to see me because I was a youngster," end quote. After seeing the Muay Thai film Ong Bak, he got the final push into the sport he needed. He was fascinated by the style and the movement, which he possessed differently while dancing. He had always been a show-off and wanted to be artistic, having been a dancer as a child. In combat sports, that foundation in dance is extremely valuable. The parallel between fighting and precise footwork is clear, as evidenced by famous Ukrainian boxer Vasyl Lomachenko, whose father forced him to focus on dance for 4 years as a child. As Adesanya told the Joe Rogan podcast, fighters who could enthrall with the fluidity of their movement always piqued his curiosity. He once mentioned that Prince Nassim Hamed was the only boxer he had ever seen who made him pause, watch, and simply smile and chuckle, and that he was impressed by his movements. The fighter had always been drawn to people like that, particularly well-known fighters such as Ali, Roy Jones, and Pernell Whitaker. Kickboxing was Adesanya's first discipline, and he immediately made a name for himself. not just because of his spectacular movement and movie-like knockouts, but also because of his love of spectacle. His fearless demeanor is a primary feature that has endeared him to various MMA fans, as evidenced by his aggressive fighting style and confidence in facing opponents, and further evidenced by his antics in the octagon and in interviews. Isreal's persona is scary, but his track record gives opponents the creeps. After one KO, there is old footage showing Adesanya laying at the top of the ropes and mocking his opponents with his hands low before savaging them with spinning techniques. It was time to go on to the next chapter in 2011, and he made the bold decision to fight professionally in China. It proved to be the ideal furnace for testing his mettle, as he settled in and won over the fans. They took him seriously, and they began to refer to him as the Black Dragon as he was winning. In one of his interviews, he said, quote, "Week after week, month after month, I just kept coming in there, boom. You learn how to fight, how to be hit, how to be disappointed, and how to get back on your feet." Adesanya bounced back and forth between battles in the Far East and Auckland, racking up a record of 75-5 with 46 knockouts. At the same time, he had a professional boxing record of 6-1, including a win against Brian Minto, who later went 7 rounds at Joseph Parker and faced Dylan White. But MMA sparked Adesanya's curiosity, and he made his MMA debut in 2012. He could no longer be ignored by the UFC after 11 consecutive KO victories, and it wasn't long until the striker created ripples in the highest level. For Stylebender to obtain his title opportunity, Kelvin Gastelum was defeated by a unanimous decision. He walked like few others before him and had a lot of peculiarities that the uninitiated were fascinated by. Adesanya draws influence from anime, particularly Naruto, a Japanese cartoon about a young kid who aspires to be the best fighter in his community. In the octagon, Adesanya would mimic hand gestures from the anime, and his nickname Stylebender was inspired by the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, which includes the main character who is obsessed with learning the 5 elements in the same way he is obsessed with mastering each martial art. The UFC fed the surging middleweight a bigger name with each bout, and in February of 2019, he was matched up against Anderson Silva, a giant of the sport and Adesanya's hero. It was a moment of passing the torch between a seasoned pro and a rising star. Anderson Silva was a guy he looked up to growing up, because he said everyone had this notion that you had to be this huge macho man to be a fighter. But when he saw Anderson Silva fight, he was like, "Who the hell is this skinny black guy pounding everyone's ass?" Adesanya said before a match. Isreal Adesanya still looked up to Anderson Silva when he ran through his division, and I still do now. Despite all of this nonsense that's been going on, he's a legend in the game. Isreal added that he still holds him in high regard. Adesanya demonstrated his abilities against probably the most talented MMA fighter of all time, raising his profile to new heights. Following that, he defeated Kelvin Gastelum to set up the greatest fight of his life, a middleweight title fight against Robert Whittaker in the champion's native Australia. It was an epic Antipodean showdown, and Adesanya stole the stage even before stepping into the cage. He went out with 3 backup dancers and did a dance routine that dominated social media for hours. At the age of 30, he was able to back up his showmanship with a picture-perfect second-round KO to become champion. Last but not least, Adesanya's dance moves, which he excels at. He loves to reference Confucius, who said, quote, "Never give a sword to a guy who can't dance." And he believes that his innate rhythm and athleticism, which he gets from dancing, help him fight. Overall, Adesanya's reputation in the martial arts world is only going to grow, and he has the potential to become one of the all-time greats. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on subsequent great videos like this. Thank you very much.